is Sunday, the 9th of August, and this is your national weather update. We're going to go through a very quick glance around the country for the weather of the week, but we're going to spend a little bit more time looking at the seasonal outlooks as well as some of our climate modes and how they're developing as well. So let's get into it. First off, here we're looking at the Sunday midday satellite image, and you can see this very strong cloud band along the southeast as a strong front moves through, bringing lots of wet, windy, cold weather. You might hear this referred to as a warm conveyor belt or an atmospheric river, and really what it is just this very well structured formation in the atmosphere that can deliver a lot of moisture on the ground. So that's what we're looking at there. This is resulting in several strong weather warnings across the nation. So pretty much across the entire southern part of the country, we have coastal wind warnings. In these interior parts of South Australia and Victoria and New South Wales, we have strong wind and strong rainfall warnings. And we also have down in Victoria flood warnings in those already very moist soil regions. This is our rainfall accumulation for the week. So we can see a lot of concentration again in the ranges, but wide parts of the southeast are going to be getting 25 to 50 mils of rain, which is a lot of rain. We're also getting some of that extending up into the central parts of the country with showers. So anywhere between sort of 1 and 5 mils for most of the southern part of the country, with regions experiencing sort of 5 to 15 as well. This is the system in question that we're talking about. This is what it looks like on Sunday. We've got this low pressure system moving across over Adelaide and into Melbourne. And then just to show you Monday, it moves across and delivers a lot more of the rainfall into the ranges then. And then we have a second front that's moving through in WA and coming across to the east. And it should hit the east sort of Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. So those are the two active systems, the fronts that are moving through. After sort of the start of the week, we have high pressure settling in, delivering some cooler overnight temperatures for much of the country, but not super chilly. I wouldn't say it's a widespread frost risk. There's definitely areas that will be experiencing frost, but it's not massive areas. Okay, so that's sort of the weather that's happening this week. Let's start looking into the long range forecasts and starting to unpack them. First off, I want to show you like the current state of where we are in terms of rainfall and soil moisture that we've received. Okay, so here we are looking at the Bureau of Meteorology's AGCD products. Now, these products have some bias correcting or interpolation tools, which means that the rainfall that you see here isn't exactly what you would have experienced on ground, but that's sort of roughly the patterns that we're seeing in terms of the systems that are moving through. So we're looking at July's rainfall here, so the past month. This is the rainfall totals, but we're going to move on to deciles now just to show the difference. So just because we've had rain doesn't mean that it's the same amount of rain that we usually get in July. So WA has been very dry, as well as a lot of the East Coast. Now, the East Coast is what we definitely expect when we have an El Nino, which we're currently in. And then this dry Western Australia is also quite typical of the positive IOD that we're starting to sort of trend towards as well. And then we have, just actually quite a bit of moisture in the interior. Now, this is also if we go back to the actual rainfall totals, that's largely driven by sort of one, maybe two systems, and it's just because not a lot of rain is typically experienced in those central areas. So if we get a system that happens to deliver, sort of 5 to 10 mils, that can actually accumulate to a lot in terms of the monthly average. So that's all we're sort of seeing there. If we go to 3 months, so now we're talking May to July, so really a lot of this sort of autumn to sort of current winter rainfall, which is when we start to experience a lot of rainfall. Most of Australia in the southern half gets sort of the winter to spring rainfall. It's actually sort of average to very much above average, especially across these interior parts again. But it's these coastal regions in the east that I think a lot of that ENSO pattern is starting to throw out there. Let's have a look at the drought indicator. So this is 3 months drought, and it's just picking up here on southwest WA. Cool. So that's just a bit of an update of where we actually are at the moment, and let's start discussing what it looks like we're going to go ahead into. So here we're looking at the 2-week forecast, so the 13th to 26th of August, just so that you can sort of help plan your next few weeks. This is the 75% chance scenario. So this is saying this is highly likely, according to how the models are currently running, that we're going to be experiencing rainfall. And the 2-week band sort of weather prediction is relatively good. So this is, pretty decent chance. So we're going to be getting sort of 1 to maybe 25 mils in WA. This is very much the pattern that we've seen over the last few months of how the fronts are moving through. Same here across sort of southeast Australia, and then Tassie, the Western Range is always getting a little bit more. And if we go to the 25% chance scenario, so it's less likely, what I want to mainly point out here is that is a very similar pattern. It's this sort of extension of the orange colors, which is like light rainfall, is more about if the fronts are moving slightly more northwards or not. So yeah, I think there's pretty good coherence in the models that it's just these sort of weak fronts moving through. These are fairly weak fronts in the next, not after this week, but the next 2 weeks, and that's a fairly decent sort of outlook of where we're going. I want to now do let's do the first 3 months. So heading into spring now, which is when we typically expect a lot of our rainfall to come to the southern parts of Australia. This is the 75% chance of exceeding September to November. Okay, so like the quite likely chance of rainfall. So we've only got sort of 50 to 100 mils here in the model along the coastal regions, and in the interior sort of 25 to 50 mils. So this is not a lot of rainfall on the way, and even this west coast of Tasmania, that's just a lot of orographic lifting there. That's not from particularly strong systems hitting Tassie either. So yeah, that's not a lot of rainfall on the way for the 75% chance scenario. 25% chance scenario, here we're looking at 100 to 200 mils across most of the sort of ag districts, with maybe like this sort of 2 to 400 mils in the ranges. So again, I'm not seeing a massive difference here. It's more the strength of the systems, but yeah, what we're looking at is really not a super wet springfall, which is expected during ENSO. And we'll keep checking in on this. We'll definitely keep coming back to it, but yeah, that's not a ton of rain on the way. Okay, so let's have a look now at our climate drivers just to see how they're developing. This is the sea surface temperature anomaly, and you can see this. This is one of our ENSO boxes. It's quite warm. It's very warm actually. And if we go into our ENSO, we can see that a lot of the models are showing a stronger El Nino on the way. This is the ECMWF. So this is, we're just showing one model, which is the European forecast model, but I'm showing you their ensemble members. So they run lots of different models, and we're seeing how those models agree. They are starting to, I would say, come to a much stronger agreement on the strength of this El Nino. So it's looking like it will be at least a 3 degrees Celsius anomaly, which is a very strong El Nino. And it's looking to peak sort of maybe November, December, I would say, is where the models are sort of showing it to peak as well. Okay, just to show this image one more time, I showed this a few weeks ago in our ENSO update, is just to show that the observations, which are here in this black line, are very much trending towards the stronger half of the models. Now, this is, I think, kind of no longer surprising. When we first started talking about El Nino being declared sort of back in May or April, we had much greater spread in the models of where it was going to go, how it was going to develop, and it was going to peak. This is as always. So El Ninos develop and intensify during winter. So towards like the end of winter, start of spring, we start to understand what they're going to look like a lot better. The models are just more capable of seeing how they're going to develop. And that's why we have so much more strength in where this is going. So yeah, I'm not surprised that this is remaining trending towards the high side of the models, just based on how this ENSO is developing, which yeah, is to also show that it's very strong El Nino that we're going to talk about. Okay, so that's the ENSO update. It's intensifying. We're starting to see that impact the seasonal forecast, this long range forecast of rainfall. But yeah, we'll keep monitoring it and how it develops. Okay, let's check into some other climate drivers, because El Nino, and so not the only things that drive climate. Weather is what delivers rainfall, not El Nino. El Nino sort of helps shape what the weather systems that will be that arrive. So it's important that we check in with the others as well. So this is the Southern Oscillation Index, and it's often a pretty good indicator of ENSO activity. And a negative Southern Oscillation Index is usually indicative of an El Nino, which is where we're heading, and that looks, quite on track. The Indian Ocean Dipole, this has across the year had such divergence in the models of where it's going. It's currently trending towards a positive IOD. Positive IODs also bring drier, hotter conditions to Australia. So we could potentially be going into a El Nino and positive IOD spring, summer. Southern Annular Mode. Southern annular mode is the contraction or the extension of the sort of westerly wind belts. It was very positive, like record-breaking positive, a few months ago, or like in July, sort of end of June, start of July, very, very positive, which is one of actually the reasons that we didn't get a lot of the winter rainfall that we're expecting down in the south, not ENSO, because the fronts, they were developing and they were delivering, but they couldn't extend up across into the actual interior parts of the country. So they were very southern, which is why if we look at the rainfall history, if I go into rainfall deciles for the month, Tasmania is relatively like average rainfall. They were still getting their rainfall and even into parts of Victoria, but the fronts across here weren't developing up and penetrating across. So that's just part of the southern annular mode. Point is, it's heading back into neutral, and that's why we've gotten to discuss over the last few weeks that we're starting to get more of that frontal activity coming across and into the southern parts. It is, however, it's not going into the negative, so we're not going to see strong fronts. It just is the return of those more typical winter fronts that I feel like we've been missing a lot throughout the start of winter. Okay, finally wrapping it up with the Madden-Julian oscillation. So if we go back into here, which is rainfall 75% chance scenario, and let's do the second fortnight. Actually, let's go chance about the median. This shows it well. So very low chance of exceeding median rainfall down here in the south, but there's actually a chance of exceeding it up here in the north. Now it's a dry season, so sort of any rain is going to exceed the median, and that is largely because the MJO, the Madden-Julian oscillation, is starting to enter some of its wetter phases. So likely delivering just probably, not heavy rainfalls, but light to moderate rainfalls could be on the way in the next few weeks up in the north as well. Okay, so that's a very long discussion on sort of where we're at and where we're going. I think it's pretty safe to say that we will be discussing El Nino and so a lot more. You're going to be seeing it in the news everywhere, and I know it's a very important indicator for a lot of people about what you're going to plant in this spring season, whether to destock, all those sorts of decisions. So we will, I think, be paying a little bit more closer attention to this. So in the next few videos, I think definitely in our national updates, we'll be going through this every week. Don't be surprised if the things that we discuss each week don't change, but I'll still go through it just to keep you in the loop of how it's developing and what we're seeing. But for the most part, yeah, we're definitely seeing much more confidence of its intensification. But as a reiteration, a strong El Nino does not mean strong drought conditions. Okay, if you don't quite understand where that comes from, there's a video posted maybe a little bit over a month ago where we just go and explain El Nino. So you can go back to there and check that out. Or if you have some more questions or want anything clarified, please reach out to the Jane's Weather team or the Farm Online Weather team, and they'll pass it on to me and we can discuss that next week. Okay. Do have a good week, stay safe, and let us know if we can give you any more information that will be helpful. See ya.